They say all politics is local, but the States Project is putting their money where their mouth is. The Democrat-aligned group is planning to spend $70 million in legislative battles in 9 different states. The money will go directly to candidates and groups on the ground to decide how best to use the funds. Our next guest told the New York Times this: in the last decade, whether it comes to the right to reproductive health care or policies to raise wages for full-time workers, state legislatures have done more good and more harm than any other level of government. I'm happy to welcome the co-founder of the States Project, former Democratic State Senator Daniel Squadron of New York. I am so glad you're here. Help us understand this. What is at stake in these local races? What should we know?
Look, everything that people think about as being at stake in the presidential election is at stake in these elections. Personal freedoms, not just the right to abortion, but the right to contraception. Affordability, whether people can make a full-time job, meet their expenses around that kitchen table every 2 weeks, energy and climate, the length of the commute, everything that people think about when they think about domestic policy. As I said there, states have done more damage or good on in the last decade than the federal government has.
Why these particular states? Why are they so important?
These are the states in the country where governing power is on the line this November. That means that in states like Michigan or in the Pennsylvania House or the Minnesota House, you're trying to hold on to really, really tight majorities, one-seat majorities. Or in places like Arizona and New Hampshire, you're trying to change the majorities away from ones that have, in the case of Arizona, literally voted against the right to contraception. And then in a couple of these states, there's a supermajority, like in North Carolina, for example, tens of millions of dollars being spent on the gubernatorial election. But if the far right wing has supermajorities in both chambers in that state, the new governor won't have the power to act on the people's will.
Republicans have long had an advantage when it comes to funding these races. Have Democrats finally wised up and caught up?
Well, I think we've done better. They certainly have a half-century head start on us. And when we look at what the States Project has been able to accomplish in the years since our founding, other groups as well, we're improving. But, at 0 to 30, you're not going to get to the finish line quickly enough. And so while we've made progress, we're not nearly where we need to be, especially since at this level of government, every new dollar, every new door knock, every new TV ad spot has a much bigger impact than at any other level of the ballot.
What is the impact or the thought on how Biden's candidacy will impact these down ballot races?
Look, as someone who's been on a ballot myself a half dozen times, you always want the person at the top of the ballot in your party to be more popular. That always helps. And it certainly sets a little bit of a baseline. But we also know that at the state legislative level, voters are twice as likely to split their ticket compared to the top of the ballot relative to Congress. We know that when candidates knock on doors, in Arizona, for example, just since the debate, the most persuadable voters engage with those candidates more when they learn that they're not there to talk about the presidential race or Congress. They're there to talk about local issues. They're there to talk about basic rights like abortion and the right to contraception.
Daniel, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Always good to see you.
Thanks for covering it.